Number one, I would like to say thank you to the organizers for this beautiful event, especially on the day when this day is so important for the Ukrainian nation. Let us remember this day, October 11th, because this day exactly opens a new era in the life of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. My 4 pages actually is based on a book we just wrote about 4 years ago, and I have a couple of samples for those who like to purchase. So I'm going to read those 4 pages, and I hope I embrace all of the elements of ecclesiology in those 4 pages. The question of the nature of the church ecclesiology requires immediate attention among the contemporary Orthodox theologians. The accumulation of ecclesial problems within the local Orthodox churches doesn't allow the leaders of the Orthodox Church the luxury of postponing or ignoring this very difficult subject. Such issues as the unrecognized local Orthodox churches in the Balkans, the problems of autocephaly of the Orthodox Church in the United States, and the overlapping of jurisdictions in the United States, Canada, and Western Europe are the strongest evidence of the crisis in the field of ecclesiology of the Orthodox Church in the world. One of these complex contemporary problems within Orthodoxy is the division of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine and her autocephaly. For a variety of reasons, the question of autocephaly of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine has to be given a highest priority, as the escalation of the division deepens the rift in the largest or local Orthodox Church in the world. There is a real danger of the escalation of this anomaly to the level of military conflict, which would destabilize the entire region of the Eastern Europe. Any discussion of autocephaly of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine must include such issues as the history of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church as a metropolia of the Patriarchate of Constantinople, current politicization of the inter-Orthodox relations within the life of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, and the mechanism by which autocephaly is granted to the particular local church. Every autocephaly identifies a subject of a particular context, culture, language, tradition that are essential for fostering faith and belief in the particular local church context. All of these elements are embraced by autocephaly as an intrinsic component of a particular nation of a local church. Autocephaly is not a destiny or a final goal of the local church, but a life-giving possibility that allows people to express their longing for God according to the specific condition. Also, autocephaly, which means a self-governance of the local church of a particular country, always follows the boundaries of the state. Autocephaly brings togetherness of the members of the local church who share the same human elements of free will and who are united by faith. Autocephaly is always external to the internal life of the church. Autocephaly is always given and recognized, while the internal permanent ecclesial life of the church is all the time the same. As we approach the subject of autocephaly, presently there is no approved formula or procedure to establish a local autocephalous church. Although there are some characteristic features concerning the recognition of the independent status, the will of the majority of the faithful, clergy and bishops, and sufficient number of bishops and eparchies, at least 4, the coexistence of the independent state and the canonical ecclesiastical source, the mechanism of granting autocephaly needs to be agreed upon. Among the conditions for the establishment of the autocephalous local church, there is one element that is based on the experience of the Orthodox Church in the last 2 centuries, and it's very important. All of the local churches that were granted autocephaly in the last 2 centuries based their autocephaly on the fact that a particular nation managed to achieve its political and territorial independence. The requirement of the existence of an autocephalous local church begs for the existence of an independent state where the unity of the local church is preserved. The independent state where intrinsic character of the church is not preserved could not be the foundation of autocephaly. Who is the mother church, as mentioned before? In addition, according to the official patriarchal acts of the Ecumenical Patriarchate, there are also two basic requirements for ecclesial independence. The first requirement emphasizes the fact that, quote, ecclesiastical matters are to be regulated in general in accordance with those of the state. The second condition underlines the aspect of declaration of the intention to the mother church. The second condition precedes the first one. In the letter of declaration, there is full support from the civil authorities, and what happened last April, that the Verkhovna Rada gave the approval for Poroshenko to go to Tsarhorod, is very fundamental. These two requirements are fundamental for autocephaly for the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. The distinctive term used by the Ecumenical Patriarchate that could be contested and widely discussed by some within the Orthodox Church in Ukraine is the term Mother Church. The Mother Church begins the process of consultation among the autocephalous Orthodox churches based on the acceptance of the declaration from the daughter church. Here is the Tsarhorod and also Ukraine. The declaration presents us with an ecclesiastical bond between the Mother Church and the particular local church that is never broken by absorption, isolation, political and territorial enslavement. As such, it is always present, always preserved in its original bond, and always generated in the life of the church. Ecclesiastical motherhood is the natural ecclesiastical manifestation that cannot be eradicated, transferred, or suppressed. The mother church becomes the source of apostolicity for the local church, and ecclesiastical body through whom apostolicity is being transferred. By emphasizing apostolicity, the Mother Church recognizes and identifies not only the unbroken historical continuity, but also the unchanged faith. The Mother Church declares the daughter church to be important, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. Without these essential elements of the Orthodox ecclesiology, there cannot be any discussion of independence of the local church in general. In the context of the division of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Ukraine, these characteristics are essential for the dialogue and eventual restoration of the church unity. In the perspective of the Ecumenical Patriarchate, the mother church for the church in Ukraine is always the Church of Constantinople. The Ecumenical Patriarchate never rejected or relinquished the motherhood for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Ukraine. The position taken by the Church of Constantinople is consequential and uncompromised, especially in the period of the last three centuries. Because the local church in Ukraine until 1686 was under the canonical jurisdiction of the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople, the mothers of the church in Ukraine are the mothers of the Ecumenical Patriarchate. From another perspective, the continual maternal reference of the Ecumenical Patriarchate towards the Orthodox Church in Ukraine has fundamental implications on the identity of the local church in Ukraine. The Ecumenical Patriarchate acknowledges and respects its unique character. There is no indication of subordination or ecclesiological enslavement of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church by the Ecumenical Patriarchate. The Orthodox Church in Ukraine is recognized as a local church of a distinct and independent state. The recognition by the Ecumenical Patriarchate, as it happened today, of the existence of the uniqueness of the local church in Ukraine and the existence of independent state create a foundation for further steps towards autocephaly. This essential element stands in a complete contradiction to the position taken by the Moscow Patriarchate. Demonopolization of the Russian culture, as is presented in the concept of the Russian world, distorts the basic principle of the character of the Orthodox teaching about man. As such, the distorted anthropology presented by the Moscow Patriarchate and the distortion of the fundamental principle of the existence of the local ecclesiology cannot be taken seriously in the present ecclesiological thought of the Orthodox Church. The difference of the acceptance of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine by the Ecumenical Patriarchate and the Moscow Patriarchate is obvious. While the first one sees the Orthodox Church as a distinct ecclesiological entity with all of its characteristics, the Moscow Patriarchate looks at the Ukrainian Orthodox Church through the prism of a specific frame of ideology. While the first one affirms the notion of the existence of uniqueness Ukrainian Orthodox Orthodox Church, the other one sees it as a component of a larger ideology of the Russian imperialism. The autocephaly of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine is strictly conditioned by the Mother Church, Ecumenical Patriarchate. It is only the Patriarchate of Constantinople that can unify all of the branches of Orthodoxy in Ukraine. All of the branches of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine have to recognize the importance of the ecclesiological nature of autocephaly in order to be authentic to themselves. Any other approach to the question would be a tremendous blow to the process itself. We have to realize that the Patriarchate of Constantinople will never give away the right of the Mother Church for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Ukraine, as this is not only the right of privilege, but also the internal component of the historical authenticity. Present challenges. One of the most pressing challenges in our approach towards the question of Mother Church and the autocephaly of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine has to do with the division of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine into 4 branches. There's another one. As much as we would like to see further progression of the dialogue within the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, this question has to be tackled first before going into deeper dialogue. There will be definite obstacles for the recognition of the Mother Church, but the genuine Orthodox will of the Church will always be concentrated on the essential aspect of the internal life of the Church. Any other ideological, political, historical, or psychological approach to the question will be equal to the present ecclesiological reality, where division and disunity are recognized as part of the internal life of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. At the present time, there is only one alternative that is historically correct, ecclesiologically grounded and recognized the Patriarchate of Constantinople. The Mother Church has to be understood as a fundamental factor of autocephaly of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, and the recognition of the Ecumenical Patriarchate as the Mother Church for all of the branches of the Church in Ukraine could be a unifying link to heal this division. It has to be emphasized that there is no other alternative that leads us towards unity and autocephaly of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. Any other model of unity of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine and eventual autocephaly of the Church is without merit. The recognition of the Mother Church of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine has also tremendous implications on the further development of the Church. As the process of the autocephaly is initiated by the Mother Church, she is also responsible for the internal ecclesial life of the Church with all of the practical and canonical implications. The Mother Church is fully recognizing and validating the authenticity of the fullness of the Church, which equals the validation of all of the sacraments. And what happened today with the Patriarch of Philadelphia is just remarkable. He's being reinstated as a Metropolitan of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. A similar situation was faced with the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Canada before the Eucharistic normalization with the Ecumenical Patriarchate. In fact, the Patriarchate of Constantinople would have to resolve all of the canonical ecclesial problems within the life of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. This is one of the main reasons of the presence of the exarchs of Constantinople in Ukraine at the present time. All of the difficulties have a canonical or ecclesial character, and as such they could be characterized as canonical abnormalities for the establishing of Eucharistic unity within the Orthodox Church, and this is something very, very important. These components are not intrinsic doctrinal difficulties that tore the Church apart. There is a difference between the division within the limits of the Church and the division between the Church and those who are outside of the ecclesial borders of the Church. The differentiation between the canonical and doctrinal differences has tremendous theological implications which have to be constantly reiterated and underlined. One must remember that at this point, one is dealing with the division of the Church that has a non-doctrinal but rather politically oriented directive caused by the Moscow Patriarchate. Because of the character of this unity within the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, there has to be a recognition among all of the branches of the Church for an immediate healing process as necessary for the Church and national unity. Conclusion. As such, autocephaly totally depends on the contextual environment of the particular local Church. A politically independent state, support by the state, national unity, recognition of the authentic Orthodox nation, and recognition of the Mother Church. The main task of the Autocephaly of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine is the emphasis on the defense of a unique, particular Ukrainian national authenticity in its fullness that is being recognized by the Ecumenical Patriarchate. Any claims made regarding the danger of division of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, if Autocephaly is given, misinterprets and manipulates the essential elements of ecclesiology of the Orthodox Church. In the case of granting Autocephaly, as is happened today, for the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, the local character of the church is safeguarded. Autocephaly not only would allow people of Ukraine to preserve the essential elements of the Orthodox theology, but also become an impulse for the further growth of the church in general. The church that celebrates and safeguards the essential elements of the Christian local and authentic identity becomes inspiration for the people to strive for perfection and sanctification. The only way to safeguard the authenticity of the local identity of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine is the recognition by the Mother Church of the Ecumenical Patriarchate. At the present time, the Mother Church serves as a double purpose. From one perspective, the authenticity of the specific local anthropology is acknowledged and recognized. From the other perspective, the Mother Church of Constantinople heals the rift in the life of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine and provides the necessary provision for Autocephaly. Autocephaly of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church brings a source of pride and dignity for members of the Church in Ukraine who were deprived of this essential ecclesiastical element in the last 3 centuries. There are certain moments in our life when the pride and dignity given us by God in His image are the only hope we have. After centuries of ecclesial, national, and political enslavement, people can freely worship God in their own authentic churches without fear of being annihilated. Millions of martyrs, fathers and mothers, grandfathers and grandmothers, innocent children being shot in their own homes, sent to Siberia for the prolonged death, starved to death in the artificial famines, will be vindicated if the choice at the present time is made towards Autocephaly and unity is reestablished. It is my hope that there is enough strength in Ukraine to make a decision that will heal the division within the Orthodox Church and bring stability for the nation, which is constantly looking towards the Church for guidance. Thank you.